sheets in the pews when you leave. There's very important information in this set of scriptures. So important, in fact, that it couldn't be covered in just 1 week. It is going to be 3 weeks. Last year we talked about a portion of it. This week we're talking about a portion of it. And then next week we're going to talk about a portion. But the truth of the matter is this gives us a whole picture. Now, last week we started out talking about how we worship God in truth and spirit, and that we're spirit beings, and that we're in a spiritual battle, and we have a real foe, that there is a real foe among us that desires to destroy us. And so we left off with verse 12, for our struggle is not against enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. And so this morning we're going to kind of overlap. We talked about 13 last week as well, but this morning we're going to overlap those two, because just like a mural, when you're putting a whole picture together, sometimes you run out of paper, right? And then you get the next part of the picture and you have to tape them together. Well, 13 is what's going to tape last week and this week together. And so therefore take up the whole armor of God, so that you may be able to withstand on the evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. Stand firm. Stand therefore, and fasten the belt of truth around your waist, and put on the breastplate of righteousness. As shoes for your feet, put on whatever will make you ready to proclaim the gospel of peace. With all of these, take the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the word, which is the word of God. I know you are thinking, Arthur just read that. Right. Repetition makes things stick. And so we've got to know really where we're coming from today, y'all. And Paul would have been in a Roman jail looking at Roman guards while he was telling us about these spiritual truths. And so what he did was he took a natural thing that we could see and understand and applied the spiritual truths that we were going to have in order to walk this thing out. And so God is so gracious to me. And I know he is to you too. But y'all, I'm a very visual person. And so Tuesday we were at Bible study, and we did our leaders training, and the lady that I work with in the Blue Lambs' name is Cindy. And so we're sitting there and she slides this little picture to me. Now this has nothing to do with what we're studying in CBS. And I think to myself, well, isn't that neat? That's so cute. It took me all the rest of the day to figure out that God had sent me an illustrated message. So I got to thinking about it, and I talked to Cindy later, and she dug through. She knew that I was going to be preaching this, and she went through the past stuff to find me this little cover sheet to be able to use. I thought that was so precious that God would use her to give us all. And Donna said, Stacie, that's a cover sheet. That's a little kid. I said, right. And that's what's going to capture the attention of the adults in my church. So we're going to talk about this little picture, and I want you to take that little picture home with you, because we're going to be talking about how the Roman guard would have been dressed and how Paul was giving us the spiritual applications of that. This wasn't just some willy-nilly thing that he made up. You know, he was looking at a physical representation of what he was telling us. And so they would have been dressed in their full armor, because they had to be ready. Just because they were standing guard on the prisoners didn't mean that they didn't have to be ready at a moment's notice to go to battle for the king. Oh, don't miss that, y'all. We got to be dressed so at a moment's notice we can go into the battle for our king, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So, The whole armor of God. It says, stand therefore and fasten the belt of truth around your waist. Now y'all, we know what a belt does, right? It holds our pants up. But what a belt would do for the Roman soldier was it would hold every essential thing he needed. It held his whole outfit together, but it also held a scabbard for his sword, and it held a little pouch for provisions. Now, look, I need a backpack for provisions, but so get the mental picture of the little, and it also had an area in the very front that would protect his sensitive area. And so this belt would be the last thing that he put on, and it would tie everything together, and it would be the indication that he was ready to go forth. Now y'all, our belt is the belt of truth. And what truth is that? The truth of Jesus Christ. The truth that He is, He will be. Our weapons must be secured to us also, y'all. We've got to have all of our tools at our disposal as we go forth. And so when you think about putting on a belt, I want you to think of it more as putting on a tool belt than a leather belt for your pants. I want you to see it as having a place to hang everything right at hand that you're going to need. What we need is the truth, because that's what's going to bind everything together. We're ready for battle when we get our belt on. And put on the breastplate of righteousness. Now y'all, this breastplate would have been metal, and it would have been formed to each soldier. So when I would get up to get dressed as a Roman soldier, I couldn't get Miss Pittman's armor. It wouldn't fit. Her breastplate wouldn't fit me. And so it would cover past the top of the shoulder and around, I'm going to step out, and around to about here on the back. It would not cover the spine, but it would cover the vital organs, namely the kidneys that are back here. And so it would cover all the vital organs for a person. And it would be strapped on, and it wouldn't come off. It would be something you would put on and you would have on, and it wouldn't come off. And so this breastplate would cover the heart too. And so you might say, well, wait a minute. Now, you know, I'm okay. I have the righteousness of Christ. You're right. That's what our breastplate is. Our righteousness is Christ. And y'all, I don't know about you, but look, I like to get my legs beat off one time. I think my daddy whooped me for 30 minutes. I made up my mind I wasn't going to cry, and he made up his mind I was. Finally, my mother came in and said, you two both, stop it. He didn't really whip me 30 minutes. I'm being dramatic. But I was determined, y'all, I wasn't going to cry. And I carried that forth into my whole life. Well, you probably know that I am just a ball bag now. God has made me so tender-hearted that sometimes songs make me cry. Sometimes just preaching makes me cry. I mean, you know, I've got that tender heart. Well, guess what? It's kind of scary to be that vulnerable. It's kind of scary to put yourself out there. But in the Bible, it says Christ took that stony heart and gave us a heart of flesh. And so guess what? We have that breastplate of righteousness to protect that. We don't have to protect ourselves. We don't have to rebuild those walls. We don't have to re-harden ourselves from the madness and the chaos we see all around us, because we have that breastplate of righteousness protecting everything inside that's important. That tickles me, y'all. I still have to cry, but I do it a lot. And so we've got the breastplate, we've got the belt, and then the next thing it tells us is and shoes for your feet. put on whatever will make you ready to proclaim the gospel of peace. Now, Roman soldiers, y'all, would have had these sandals that had a thick leather sole to protect their feet because they were going to be walking long distances for battle. Now, not only that, but you've seen these sandals that have like the leather laces up to mid-calf. Those leather laces served a purpose. They supported the ankle while it was walking. And so these shoes were support for the long road ahead. Some of y'all can attest that it's already been a long road and you're not to the end of it yet. You know, we sometimes think of Christianity as kind of a sprint. We sprint to the altar and we get saved and then, you know, yay, it's over. No, this is a marathon. This might be an ultra marathon for some of us. You know, someone that might be having a birthday soon. Y'all, we've got to have on the right shoes. Look, when we go into battle, we're not going in as the world goes in, with hatred and resentment and bitterness, with ugliness. We're going in with the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we're walking in his peace. We have to show them that this battle is for his kingdom and not for position, not for place. We've got to bring peace with us. They know about everything else. The difference is that we come to battle with peace. You know, when they used to go into battle, they would send somebody and they would have a flag, and from afar off, they would look and they would see what color the flag was. And if the sentry on top sent down, it's a white flag, they were coming in peace. And if it was a red flag, they were coming in battle. And so we've got to go with our white flag, y'all. Think about this. All of these pieces we've talked about so far are attached to you. You put on your shoes, you put on your breastplate, you put on your belt. Now these, and so they don't move. You know, they're there. You get up, you put them on in the morning like you put on your shirt and your pants and your shoes. You get up, you get ready, you put these things on. But then the next three things you have to make a conscious effort to have with you. So we're going to talk about those three things. Verse 16 says, with all these things, take the shield of faith with which you will be able to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Now, we talked about the evil one last week. He's for real. There are very real trials and tribulations that we're going to go through in life. And so we're going to have to be able to withstand these fiery darts that are being shot at us. And so the Roman soldier would have had this huge metal and leather shield. And he would hold it. And it was so big, in fact, that it would have a hand hold, but then it would also have a strap. So the whole front part of the arm would be holding this shield. But the thing is, the insert in this shield was leather. And they would soak it in water before they went to battle. So the fiery arrows that were being fired from the enemy would be put out on their shield. And so y'all, get this picture. Look at your picture. Look at your picture. This shield of faith right here is soaked in the living water of Jesus Christ. How great is that? The living water of Jesus Christ, our faith, is what puts out the fiery darts that are coming at us. Christ is quenching those things. We don't have to defend ourselves, y'all. We can hold up that shield and know that we're covered. That's fantastic. Last week I talked about, how I really couldn't afford to give people a piece of my mind. I needed to keep all I had. This shield of faith keeps us from having to defend ourselves, y'all, against whatever might come, whether people are talking about us wrongfully or whether, there's just doubt, insecurity. I don't know what tries to come at y'all. My dad still refuses to move in with me, and I worry. I worry that I'm not doing enough, that I'm not a good enough daughter, but you know what? I have to take up that faith, and I have to hold it up and let all those fiery darts that are coming toward me be quenched, because I can't afford that kind of stinking thinking. I got things to do. And I tell on myself all the time, y'all know that. Yesterday, I got aggravated, and I was just, I told you last week that I wasn't going to pick a husband out of the congregation, but I'd run my mouth. So yesterday, I got aggravated, and I was just a yeah. Well, right in that instant, I said, Donna, I've got to shut up. What am I doing? I got a text message. One of my dear, dear friends needed immediate, I need prayer right now. I'm desperate. Y'all, I can't afford to run my mouth. I've got kingdom work to do. I've got praying to do. I've got fasting to do. We got to get some answers from the Lord. And so I had to pick up that shield of faith to put out the darts. I was firing at myself. Y'all probably don't do that. But look, I'm tougher on myself than I'll ever be on y'all. And so sometimes that faith has to come into play against our very own selves. So then, after they've quenched all these fiery darts, take up the helmet of salvation. Now, y'all, this gets me. I'm almost sorry some of y'all had to sit through what God's preaching to me. A Roman soldier would have little use for anything else without his helmet. One blow would kill him. And y'all, these helmets covered his whole head all the way down to his shoulders. And it had this thing that came down the nose piece. And everything's got a pro and a con, right? One of the cons of wearing these helmets was that it severely limited their peripheral vision. I have to every morning get up and put on my helmet of salvation, or else I'll be looking at everything to the right and the left. I'll be seeing everything on the sidelines and trying to fix all that and miss what's right before me. And so, as we put on this helmet of salvation, it's covering what? Our most important internal thing, our mind. That is where the enemy really wants to attack us, is in our mind. He didn't tempt Eve with anything else in the garden except the word she had been told. You're not really going to die. He knows when you eat of this fruit, you'll be like him. Can I tell you, it's so vital that we understand fully the Word of God, or else it will get twisted just enough to make us doubt what we heard and what we know and who we are. And then the next thing you know, we've done something that we regret. I've run my mouth when I should have just shut up and prayed. The devil is working on our identity. He's working on who we believe we are, whose we believe we are, and what that means. And so we've got to, Joyce Meyer has a whole series on the battlefield of the mind, because the mind is the biggest battle. My mind, I have to battle my flesh and the devil. Y'all probably just have to battle the devil. So, we get our heads covered, we limit our view to just what's before us, and then it says, and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Now y'all, this sword is the only offensive weapon mentioned. All the others are for defense. for what's coming at you. But please don't understand me today to say that we take this word of God and just beat people half to death with it. That is not what it's for. It's a sword to slice away little parts at a time. I laugh, I probably would have been Peter because I'd have sure cut that soldier's ear off. And then Jesus would have had to pick it up and slap it back on. No, that's not how we're doing this today. We're not in a physical battle. That's not what this sword is for. And so I'm going to give you some scriptures about the Word of God. Matthew 4, you can read the whole chapter. It's really good. But it says, 4:1 says, Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. Now, y'all, I've never fasted 40 days and 40 nights. 14 was about all I could handle, and I was starving when I got done. And it wouldn't hurt us to fast now, just saying. That was meddling a little. So verse 3 says, The tempter came and said to him, If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. But he answered, It is written, One does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. If Jesus used this word, it is written, to go to battle with the enemy, don't you think we need to too? And look what the enemy came after right off. If you are the Son of God. You know he knew he was the Son of God. And you know Jesus knew he was the Son of God. He didn't fall for it. But he didn't prove himself. Y'all, let's don't get caught up in defending ourselves and proving who we are. We've got to know who we are, and we've got to stand firm in that. And not be shaken by someone else's doubt or someone's ridicule. Verse 5, Matthew 4 and 5 says, Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against the stone. Jesus said to him, Again it is written, Do not put the Lord your God to the test. So here he doubles down. The devil doubles down. He says, hey, he still says question your identity, but if you're going to stand in that, guess what? I know the word too. It's written, and here it says this right here. And Jesus says, look, don't misinterpret this. I know what it says, and here's the rest of the story. It also says, don't try God. So we've got to know, y'all, who we are, and we got to know whose we are. We can't be fooled by that. So then in verse 8 it says, Again the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. Jesus said to him, Away with you, Satan, for it is written, Worship the Lord your God and serve only him. Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. Y'all, this was a battle, and Jesus used the word for the weapon. He was the word that became flesh and dwelt among us. But he used the word of God, the sword of the word, as the Spirit gave him utterance and called to his remembrance. Remember, it said the Spirit led him into the wilderness. We've got to be prepared, y'all. We've got to be confident, and we've got to be convinced of who we are, whose we are, and what we're doing. See, he was trying to get Jesus to take a shortcut. There is no shortcut. Jesus knew that eventually all these things were going to be his anyway, and so did the devil. And so he said, you know what, I'll give it to you now. Nope. No. Worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Now, y'all, Hebrews 4 and 12 tells us, Indeed, the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing until it divides soul from spirit, joints from marrow. It is able to judge the thoughts and the intentions of the heart. This is kind of gross, but look. The Roman soldiers' swords were two-edged for a single reason. They would cut going in and they would cut coming out. They would stab and pull back, pull up and pull back, and it would cut coming out too. Look, you know what God does with us with this two-edged sword? It is so sharp that He just shaves off a little bit at a time. A little here that's not needed. A little there that's not needed. You know, if I'm trimming off a good piece of meat and I get my knife in there and I cut that silver skin and I just barely get that silver skin, I don't take any of the good meat. Y'all, I had the most spoiled dog. His name was Cappy. He was a boxer. He loved apples. And I worked all day on Wednesdays and went to church on Wednesday night. And my mama kept him every Wednesday. As a matter of fact, one Wednesday, Dinah was off and he didn't get to go. And he sat at the door and howled. He knew what day of the week it was and that he wasn't going to Mama's. So Mama didn't like apple peel and she peeled her apples. Well, after about 2 weeks, now this short 2 weeks of Wednesdays with Mama, Cappy wouldn't eat an apple if it wasn't peeled. So one day I was at Mama's and I was peeling an apple. She said, "Girl, you have wasted half that apple. My mother could peel an apple and you could almost see through the skin." I was not that good. Can I tell you, God is? He's only cutting away those things that need to be cut away. We can't take this sword and do the cutting because we'll surely cut the good stuff off. We'll take more than needs to be taken. And all He's trying to do is cut that dry, stiff part away and reveal that good flesh that Jesus can permeate. Oh, see, we'll go in and we'll just be indiscriminate. We'll say, "Ooh, I think I see something there. Ooh, I see something there." No. We're going in peace. And so our two-edged sword has to be used with compassion and empathy and all the things that are in this book. So tomorrow morning, I want you to take your insert. When you start getting dressed, I want you to put on your belt of truth. I want you to put on your breastplate of righteousness, and I want you to tie those shoes of peace on and get ready. And then I want you to take up your shield. And I want you to take your sword. And I want you to put that helmet on. And I want you to stand ready to go forth for the Lord. Because see, we got to look back a little bit and we got to see that He said, stand. Take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand on the evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. Verse 14, stand therefore, and fasten the belt of truth around your waist, and put on the breastplate of righteousness. As shoes for your feet, put on whatever will make you ready to proclaim the gospel of peace. With all of these, take the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. You're standing ready, fully dressed, fully prepared to take that next step.